I'm gonna be playing out there, right? I ain't trying to be sitting on the bench, man.
Man, you better go to work.
So we are just about a month away from the 73rd edition of the NBA All-Star Game, which will be hosted by the Indiana Pacers at the Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Now, obviously, the All-Star Game isn't what it used to be when every player was rocking their own team jersey, and it felt like even when games were going down to the fourth quarter, everybody was still giving their full effort. But I definitely still do enjoy the All-Star Game and the All-Star Weekend as a whole. Caleb, I'm a basketball head just like you, so I'm going to tune in no matter what. So it still has special moments here and there. NBA involves charities benefiting based on a certain team winning. So it definitely is cool to see that, seeing the kids pop out, seeing the organizations get represented. And, you know, definitely for the first few years they did it, the teams were playing harder and we got some classic moments at the end of games. And this year they will be going back to an East versus West format, and we're still going to have captains selecting teams. And that always takes me back to what it felt like when we were kids playing basketball on the playground. So I definitely do love that. But we're specifically here to talk about right after the second round of fan returns came in. Caleb, what do you think was your biggest surprise after seeing that second round?
I think my biggest surprise were both in the backcourt, which we're going to get to, both in the East and the West. Two starting guards that aren't on either of our lists, but according to the fans, they're probably going to be starters. So that was the biggest surprise that I took from fan returns.
Yes, sir. And it's very important to remember that even though these fan votes are the talk of town right now when it comes to the All-Star Game, they only account for 50% of what will be determined who will be the starter and who will actually make it into the game. The other 25% goes to the media panel, and the final 25% goes to the NBA players themselves. So, Caleb, start me off. We're going to take a look at what our ideal starting five is going to be for the All-Star Game. You're going to be taking the Eastern Conference. Talk to me about your backcourt.
So my starting backcourt for the East, it's going to be, funnily enough, they share two first names. It's going to be Tyrese Maxey and Tyrese Halliburton for me.
The two Tyreses.
Yeah. Really special what both of them are doing. But on the topic of Maxey, I think with the context of James Harden leaving as that pick and roll partner for Joel Embiid, obviously helped them win that MVP award with, I think it was 11 assists per game last year, really stepping into that playmaker role and still contributing on the offensive end with about 20, 21 points a game. But for Maxey this season, he's a top 20 pick and roll scorer in the NBA, 7.7 points per game as the ball handler. And he's ahead of some impressive guys that are getting some all-star buzz, like Steph Curry, 7.5 points a game. Anthony Edwards is only at 6.5, and DeMar DeRozan at 7.3. So when you think about it from that perspective, as a young guy doing this, I believe he's still under 25 in his fourth season, I want to say.
Yes.
Wasn't even selected in the lottery. A lot of people overlooked him in that 2020 draft, but he's really made an impact there. He's got career highs in points with 26 a game and assists at 7 a game. And he's shooting pretty well from three-point range. Not quite the 42, 43% shooter he was for back-to-back seasons in his second and third seasons, but 37% on about 6 attempts per game. Still very high volume and a good percentage. And like I said, with the context that he's had to do it with James Harden and how he's impacting winning, he's got them in the third seed. And when you think about all the talent in the East, you know, you got Jalen Brunson, Trae Young, who is actually the second guy in fan returns for the Eastern backcourt, as we saw today, and Donovan Mitchell. Well, like a few of those guys are averaging more than him, but it's what he's doing on the court to contribute to winning for that third seed. Without Embiid, he's missed a lot of games due to various issues with his knee, his ankle, very, very like minor injuries, but it's going to be important for award voting later on in the postseason before then. But when you think about Tyrese Maxey, I think he's just done a really good job. So that's guard number one. And for guard number two, Tyrese Halliburton. What a season he's had. And I think it's going to be it's helped that the game's being played in Indiana this season. So the fans, I think, are showing out for their hometown guy. But that's not to say that he's not deserving of this at all, because he's making headlines and he's the floor general for the greatest offensive rated team of all time. It's not even close, really. Like 122. No teams even hit, I think, 121 for an offensive rating over a whole season. So what he's doing is the driving engine for that team. It's really impressive. Earlier this season, really respectable sports writer that I get a lot of my news from, Nekias Duncan. He said that Tyrese Halliburton is like Steve Nash, but with a 75 shot tendency on 2K. And I thought that was just the perfect comparison because he's averaging 12 assists a game, 12 and a half to be specific, but he's also putting up about 24 on 49, 40, and 86 splits. And that 3-point percentage is on 8.4 3-point attempts a game. So once again, like Maxey, very high volume. And you might hate his shot form. It might look like a catapult, but it's going in.
It goes in. It goes in, and that's what matters.
Exactly.
You got Sean Marion, you had UCLA Lonzo Ball.
Yeah.
You had so many dudes that, had funny form that got made fun of, but, at the time it was going in. And can't argue with the results, can't argue with the stats, my brother.
You definitely can. And Steve Nash's career highs, granted it was a slower era back then in the mid-2000s, a bit less pace. But his career high averages were only 19 points and 11.6 assists. Now, Tyrese is exceeding those margins. And sure, you could argue that in this modern era, Indiana's like driving pace. They're the second highest pace in the league at 103.5. But I think what makes Haliburton so great this season, it's his ability to avoid turnovers despite high usage rate and being able to find his teammates. 2 separate stretches this season where he's had 25 plus assists over 2 games and 0 turnovers. The first was in November. He had 32 assists and 0 turnovers over a 2-game stretch. And the last was in early December with 28 and 0. That's 60 assists over 4 games with 0 turnovers. And in a league with pretty good defenders and such a high volume of possessions, time in and time out, it's really hard to do that. So a lot of credit to him. And like I said, those 4 games total with 15 and 0. Most recent showing was 20 and 20 with 0. A very impressive game there. The only person to ever do that in NBA history with 20 points, 20 assists, and 0 turnovers. Can you guess that player, Noel?
20 points, 20 assists, 0 turnovers. So we're talking someone that could put the ball in the bucket, but had the ball in their hands a lot and had definitely some good teammates around them to get their own points as well. I think I'm going to have to go with Magic Johnson.
It's actually Chris Paul back in 2016. Now, it's funny that you do mention Magic Johnson because Tyrese Haliburton did this in back-to-back games of 20 assists. And doing that back-to-back, only John Stockton and Magic Johnson have done that. Yeah.
Very elite company. Very
elite company. And he was an all-star reserve last season. I expect him to start this year. He's leading the league in assist percentage at 51.5%. That means whenever he's on the floor, he's assisting over half of his team shots. Ridiculous stuff from Tyrese Haliburton. And unfortunately for him, that hamstring injury looked really rough. Thankfully, it's only a strain. He's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks, but hopefully he can get healthy enough for this All-Star game. So yeah, that's going to be my starting backcourt, 2 Tyrese's. And what seasons they're having, for real.
No, incredible. On the topic of Tyrese Maxey, real quick, he's always been someone that I've respected, just seeing his path to the league as an undersized guard, someone that, like you said, not a lot of teams believed in. Coming out of Kentucky, I watched this documentary of how he got prepared for the NBA draft, and dude was waking up and putting up 500 shots off rip. He wasn't known as a shooter coming into the league, but he quickly changed that. And now he is comfortably running that offense alongside Joel Embiid. And he has the ball in his hands, and that's why his 3-point percentage has dropped from 42% to 37%. But I think any team is going to take that when you see the responsibilities he has on his hands now. So incredible stuff from him. Obviously, Trae Young having an elite season as well. I wouldn't be upset if Trae got in there because I think he's very respected for the talent he has, for the situations he's been put in. And, hopefully Atlanta is able to make some moves and, get a better team around him. But Tyrese Haliburton, incredible. Just incredible stuff he has done ever since he got traded from the Sacramento Kings. He's had this chip on his shoulder, and he's just won the NBA world over, whether it be young guys just getting into the league or old heads that are all about analytics. He's crushing it on every single end. You bring up his games where he's able to take care of the ball. He had a 5-game stretch from the end of December to the beginning of January where he had 84 assists and only 6 turnovers. This dude is taking care of the ball. He's facing some of the best defenders in the NBA recently complimenting the Boston Celtics, who have Derek White and Drew Holiday. So it's just incredible to see the notion that and the evolution he's had ever since he came into the league. And, he's got to put on for the city. So I have no doubt he's going to do everything he can to be healthy and, to at least get out there and get some run in. I wouldn't want him to go hard or, try to go for like 30 assists in the game. But, just a wave to the crowd, represent the team. I think that would be huge. But moving over to the Western Conference, I got to talk about my own backcourt. There's a very, very big battle going on right there within the fan votes. And it's between Mr. Stephen Curry and Mr. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Essentially, the point guard who has been the golden child since 2014, 2015. And now it looks like we have a new golden child on the rise, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He has 1.7 million fan votes right now, currently 3rd in fan voting in the Western Conference at that guard spot. while Stephen Curry at the number 2 spot with 2.1 million fan votes. Now it's going to be a hot take, and I'm going to start off with this, but I think it's SGA's time to get that starting spot. I don't think it's necessarily going to happen because Steph Curry, he still has the respect of everyone around the league. He's still putting up great numbers, 26 points per game, 44% from the field, and he's really putting this team on his back right now. And you could tell he struggled over the past 5 games, I want to say. And he's literally came out and said that the team needs to make some trades because if they keep the same stuff, it's insanity. It hurts to see because the Warriors, they've been the smaller franchise over the past couple of years. But back to the topic of All-Star, Shai, you can't knock what he's doing. The Thunder, 26-11 compared to Golden State, 17-20. SGA is the best player on the second best team in the Western Conference right now. He's taking great strides on defense along with his elite offensive talent. He's in the 90th percentile at his position, and he's not shying away from the big matchups. He's guarded the likes of Anthony Edwards, Stephen Curry himself. He goes to Instagram whenever he cooks them afterwards, which, he has some of the best captions in the game.
Caption game fire. Oh, yeah.
Exactly. He's the caption king. He's up there with, I don't know, Lil Baby has some of the best captions on Instagram. SGA's taking notes for sure. But you obviously got to look at the team performances as well. You got to look at everything that the Warriors have to deal with. We dropped multiple episodes talking about the Golden State Warriors, so make sure you guys check both those out. But they've struggled with injuries, off-court issues, chemistry. And like I said, Steph has had to endure all of that, and that's why I think some trades are coming soon. But OKC, this is a very young team. They don't have many. They have about like 1 or 2 vets on this team who I would consider actual vets that have been in the league for quite some time. So really, this is the first season that Chet Holmgren is healthy, and Shai has had a legit team around him since he was back on the Clippers to actually get to the postseason and make some noise there. And, he's shining. He's doing exactly what he needs to do, continues to produce on all ends at a historic level. And you take a look at how he compares to Steph Curry and Luka Doncic. And right now, I don't think he has any flaws in his game. He's scoring the ball at an elite level. He's winning games in the clutch. Like I said, best player on one of the best teams in the league. I think that speaks for itself. And even though Steph Curry, he has the popularity, he's still putting up historic numbers, and he's still shooting the ball well. I think it's Shai's time, for sure. I mean, what do you think about that, Caleb?
No, I agree. I mean, granted, I think fan popularity is going to push Steph Curry over, but if you look at it from not just the individual statistic standpoint, but also team record, I believe OKC took down Portland tonight by 63,
62.
was it? 62. 5th highest margin in NBA history. And with that win, SGA and the Thunder, they're now tied for the 1 seed, thanks to Minnesota's loss to Boston the other night. So when you think about all that they've done, Shai has continued to be great. I believe he's leading the league in steals as well this season. And obviously that's not the biggest indicator of defense, but when you think about everything he's doing on both ends of the floor, and for the amount of talent, or I guess lack thereof, around him in terms of like big contracts, because most of their guys are young, it's been really impressive to see SGA. And I think that he should get the All-Star nod over Curry, despite the precedent that Curry set for the past decade.
I mean, yeah, definitely a bunch of great points you bring up there. And like I said, that defense is really what's kind of pushing me over, because if Shai was just doing his thing offensively and he was high end on defense, then I would say, okay, like maybe Steph still should get it. But I mean, this dude, he improves every single year. He comes every year with new counters, and he just makes it harder and harder for defenses to try to figure him out. And he's doing his thing. He's going crazy, and I really hope to see him in that starting spot. Moving over to the other guard spot, for some reason, the NBA continues to, still put him in the guard. Me and you were just talking about this before, how, he could have been thrown in that forward spot, but it's Luka Doncic. No introduction needed for this guy. This dude, he's insane. He continues to produce on all ends at a historic level. And say what you want about his defense, but his ridiculous offensive efficiency more than makes up for his struggles on defense. He's up there with the likes of Magic Johnson, our own Nikola Jokic, and so many other great offensive players when it comes to producing on all ends. And, the Mavs are still well above 500 despite missing Kyrie for some time, along with Luka making the most of a rookie Derek Lively. I think that's definitely one of the more impressive notions that he's been able to accomplish this season. And when you just take a look at, he's been in the MVP conversation in the preseason for so many years, but he hasn't been able to accomplish it because the team struggles, because of his own injuries. And, this very well could be the year with the Western Conference being open, with Kyrie Irving coming back today, dropping 44 points. And I think if Luka continues to perform as well as he does, and the Mavs hopefully continue treading upwards, he's going to only push himself further into the MVP conversation. But I mean, 2.5 million fan votes. He already has a firm grip on that number one spot when it comes to All-Star voting at the guard level. So, Caleb, do you have any sort of argument against Luka being a starter?
I mean, I really can't. I mean, you think about it, he's putting up over 30 a game,
Exactly.
eight boards, eight assists. He's doing literally everything on the court. And you mentioned his defensive struggles. This season, I feel like his defensive effort is at least picked up, and that's what's helped the Mavericks at least get to a higher playing spot, as well as some roster moves that they made. But in terms of like future outlook for them, granted, he's probably going to be the All-Star starter. There's no doubt about that. But in terms
there
of
has to be some sick messing with the votes if he wasn't.
Yeah, but when you talk about, I guess, their outlook for the future and maybe playoff contention, the roster still isn't great around him, which obviously it speaks to his case, how he's able to elevate lesser talent around him. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Dallas as a whole make a trade at the deadline either. But
I mean, you talked about Siakam a number of times. I think that'd be super interesting.
Yeah.
And there's going to be plenty of other players on the market, so that's going to be something to see. Now let's move over to the front court. Let's talk about Eastern Conference back again. Give me one or two guys that you think are going to be in that spot.
For me, it's pretty simple. I think I align with fan voting for the most part. For me, it's Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's going to be my front court for the East. I'll start with Tatum. Very simple argument why he's here. Like you mentioned for your MVP pick, he's just simply the best player on the best team in basketball. Granted, they didn't show it tonight against the Bucks, losing by 33, I want to say. Fifth game in 7 nights, neither here nor there, but he's clearly the number one option. And when a team as talented as that rotates between Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, from night to night, you can always rely on Tatum to be the number one scoring option. His scoring average, it's about the same as it was in 21 and 22, 28 points a game. But his improved 3-point percentage over the past week has been very encouraging for me, 37%. Lower from the line in recent seasons, as compared to recent seasons, I should say. 81% from there, but still scoring at a very efficient level. One of the best two-way players in the league. Top 6 overall in the NBA scoring. Not really much you can say. And, when we think about All-Star voting and MVP votes and All-NBA consideration, it's about what you do against the biggest stars, I think, in those matchups. And when you had a clash of the 1 seeds earlier this week between Anthony Edwards and the Wolves and the Celtics, Jason Tatum put up 45 in overtime. Had 12 in that overtime period, hit a dagger 3, was mean mugging his way down the court. And, the Celtics look absolutely scary with the roster that they have. And it's just another ho-hum Tatum season, really. 5th straight All-Star nod, all but guaranteed, really. But I think the main question for me comes after the All-Star game. It's about what you do in the playoffs. Granted, you've made the conference finals like 3 out of the past 5 seasons. You're like one of the 5 best players in the NBA. You can make that argument without sounding ridiculous. Your one final showing wasn't great. Jaylen Brown outplayed you. And Andrew Wiggins, who we talked about, obviously, through our Warriors episodes, kind of locked you up in that 22 run. So is this the year for them? A lot of what ifs of what if he didn't hurt his ankle in that game 7 against Miami? What if they would have been able to pull off that 0-3 comeback? World may never know because Jimmy Butler got the job done. But for me, it's not about the All-Star game for him. He's going to be a lock to be a starter. It's going to be what he can do in the playoffs after. So that's one forward spot for me. The next forward spot for me, my favorite player, Giannis Antetokounmpo. No bias there, but I believe he's leading the league in fan voting. He's got the international market and American market on lock. And what he's doing, I think we've just become bored by him, really. 2-time MVP, finals MVP, dropping 50 in a closeout game on one leg. After coming down 0-2, it's incredible what this guy's done. And yet it still feels like he's being disrespected in MVP talks this season. But he's on pace to become the first man to average 30 points a game on 60% or higher from the field. And when you think about that, not even Wilt Chamberlain did that on 30 and 60. The next highest was Zion Williamson in 2021. He put up 27 points per game on 60% shooting. And that was his last healthy season.
Yep.
Again, it's more of the same. And maybe it's due to the media market that he's in. It's not New York or LA, but just the resume speaks for itself. Top 2 record in the East, just took the Celtics down by a pretty healthy margin tonight. He's putting up 31, 11, and 6. And the thing that I've noticed this season, especially with the exit of Drew Holiday from that offseason trade to bring in Damian Lillard, it's a lot more defensive responsibility for him. And I think he's taking pride on that end a little bit more. He's up to 2.5 stocks per game. That's steals and blocks, compared to 1.6 last year. And last year was the first year since his third season in the NBA when he was under 2. So when you think about what he's doing on the defensive end, what he's doing for generational rim pressure, fourth in transition points per game at 7. And you think about he's leading the league in free throw attempts as well. So he's getting to the line, imposing his will on defenses. He's pacing the league in free throw attempts by nearly 100. The next highest is Joel Embiid at 313. Giannis is at 410.
Crazy.
Because the only thing you can do to stop him is either put 3 guys in front of him or grab him by the neck and hope he doesn't make free throws. And yet he's still putting up 30 points a game. So credit to Giannis. Fully expect him. 8th straight All-Star game on the way. And still seems to be getting better as a career high in points at 29 years old, which seems crazy to say. But finally, my last pick is the reigning MVP, Joel Embiid. Now, fans might not like his style of play, flopping, getting to the line. Say what you want. This guy is scoring at all 3 levels, and he's better than his previous MVP season with the highest usage rate in the league at 38.1%. And he's got the highest PER at 34. And he's the first player in NBA history with 15 straight games of 30 points and 10 rebounds since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's some history right there.
I mean, there's people out there talking about is he on par or better than Shaq? I mean, even though I don't agree with it. I think it's just crazy that that's even a narrative that goes to show how he's performing this season.
Exactly. And the crazy thing is, he's increased his scoring to nearly 35 a game. But it's on the defensive end. He's showing a lot more effort there. I believe he's second in defensive rating this season. And it's how he's doing reacting to double teams this season. Career high 6 in assists, and that's on par with Giannis, who we tout for his passing ability. And he's averaging 2.2 blocks a game. One of only 9 players in the league to do that. So it's not just in the advanced stats, but counting stats as well. Top 2 in isolation scoring in the NBA. Both in usage at 5.4 possessions, and he's scoring at 6.3 points per game in ISO. Only behind Luka Doncic, who we all know is the ISO man in the NBA. And when you talk about not just ISO, he's doing it as a role man. That 2-man game with Tyrese Maxey, who I mentioned as a fellow All-Star starter, he's doing it on that end as well. 5.7 points per game. That's, it's top 4 in the league from that point. So 7th straight All-Star game for him, and injuries, like I mentioned, they may hurt his case for All-NBA and MVP. That back-to-back bid for him looking kind of in jeopardy, because I know that 65-game threshold is scary. But in terms of All-Star voting, should be no problem slotting him in there. So, yeah.
I think incredible picks all around. Those 3 guys are pretty much the face of the Eastern Conference right now. They've been the guys that, have been in playoffs, have taken care of business, and are just performing this season like they should be, like the best players on their teams, like stars, like still the present and the future of the NBA. So I definitely do think all of those are very valid picks, and I think all of them are going to come to fruition. And on the notion of very, very obvious picks, you got to go with LeBron James. That's my first front court pick. Once again, going to be the captain. Selecting this time only, it's going back to a West versus East format, so he's only going to be selecting his Western Conference friends. But this dude just continues to be the face of the NBA somehow, some way at 39 years old. He's been healthy this year, 35 games played for the Los Angeles Lakers, and it's important to see that even though he's still producing at an insane level that we have never seen before at his age, the Lakers just not looking very good. They're losing to the Phoenix Suns as we record this. LeBron is even getting kind of clamped up by Kevin Durant, but I mean, they got to give the guy a break. Hopefully the rest of his teammates start to step it up outside of Anthony Davis.
Or the coach.
Yeah. Strictly looking at what he's been able to do this season, this is going to be his 20th All-Star appearance, and he will pass up Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who previously held the most appearance at 19. 2 straight decades of dominance, just incredible to see, and he just doesn't slow down. He just dunked on Paul George the other day. He's still closing out games. He's still performing in the fourth quarter when he's able to. And, the numbers that we're seeing, he continues to put up between 25 and 30 points per game. He's still finding his teammates, still getting to the free throw line, and still getting to the rim at an elite level. So I don't think too much has to be said about LeBron James other than
not at all.
Just keep appreciating greatness while we have it. You never know when it's going to be his last season. You never know when he's going to decide to put those shoes up. And we all know that the NBA, the All-Star game, the playoffs are never going to be the same without him. So the king himself. And next up, we have Nikola Jokic, the next front court member. Right now, he's making a push to pass up Magic Johnson's career triple-doubles at 138. Nikola Jokic is at 105 right now. The definition of an all-around player somehow at the center position, running an offense through this guy. Just instant buckets, instant assist. And, I mean, that shot where he hit against the Golden State Warriors from about 45 feet out, that truly just defines the type of player that he is. Currently averaging 25 points, 12 rebounds, 9.8 assists. Slightly right there for averaging a triple-double, the first one since Russell Westbrook did it, of course. So truly incredible work from Nikola Jokic as well. And, even though the Denver Nuggets aren't, up and far and above in the Western Conference like they were last year, still very elite play from Jokic. And I fully expect once everybody's able to kind of get more games together and they get their young guys, Peyton Watson, and all the rest of their bench unit more run, they're going to be looking like that contender that we saw last year heading into the playoffs. Nikola Jokic also just passed 13,000 career points. And, for someone who doesn't really act like he cares or sometimes goes about his accomplishments, like they don't really matter too much, he's still performing. And like talking about Luka, talking about all the great offensive players, he's obviously in that conversation. So I think it's a no-brainer that he is going to be in there. He's going to be in that starting spot for a long time. And lastly, we got Mr. Kevin Durant, who's performing against LeBron James at the moment. He's been one of the only bright and healthy spots on the Phoenix Sun team that is right around 500 at the moment. He's averaging 30 points per game, 52% from the field, and a league-leading 47% from three-point line, while also taking on a point guard role that he has actually been excelling in while Bradley Beal and Devin Booker were out with their own respectful injuries. And his production in league play following that Achilles injury is something that I will always respect, and I think that all NBA fans need to appreciate because the dude literally suffered one of the worst injuries that you can suffer in sports and still came back and, a step bit slower, but still definitely looking very good. His defensive effort has also been great this year. I think he's definitely gotten his legs stronger from his days in Brooklyn and that first half a season with the Phoenix Suns. So definitely excited to see how he's going to be able to finish out the rest of the season. And we also did make a video talking about how his legacy is one of the most complicated in NBA history. But Kevin Durant actually came out with a recent quote, kind of shutting down all the rumors that he wants out of Phoenix once again. He said that is all cap. He said he is not unhappy with the team. He said that he wasn't upset when Bradley Beal continued to get injured. And he also said he is not unhappy with his role players. Now, obviously, that's stuff that you would want him to say. I think he definitely recognizes this point in his career that, through it all, he's still playing alongside one of the most bright superstars in Devin Booker. And, even though it's not working right now, they have the tools to make it work. Caleb, do you have any response to KD's comments that shutting down all that noise?
I mean, from the Suns' perspective, because you gave up so much to get him, I doubt that you would even consider trading him on your own agency. But I feel like we've seen this story with Kevin Durant before. He said he was healthy in Brooklyn. He requested out. He seemed like he was happy in Golden State. I mean, why wouldn't you if you were getting a cakewalk to the finals every year? But for them, I think where they are in the standings and just the lack of chemistry due to injuries, I feel like that's just the common story for these Kevin Durant super teams. And I believe that the Nuggets showed it last year when they beat him in the second round, sending him home on the road by 30 points by having a cohesive starting lineup that just fit perfectly. And when you try and put all these pieces together with superstars, almost like you're building a 2K team with like 390 overalls and the rest are
too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, I'm just not too sure how it's going to go. Now, granted, things move very fast in the NBA world. Obviously, we saw it with Jonathan Kuminga. We didn't expect him to drop that bombshell report. Players could request trades at any point in time. Some players who seem happy are very angry, and people who seem very angry are apparently very happy. These things change like the seasons. For me, I'll believe it when I see it.
No, definitely 100%. I hope that, Kevin Durant, he's been all over the place. I just want to see the guy hoop. It looks like that's all he wants to do at the end of the day. He just wants to be in a position where he has consistent teammates around him and he's able to do what he does best. And, we're seeing it right now. The wins haven't begun to stack up yet, but, he's still doing what he does and he's doing it at one of the most efficient rates in the NBA. So without a doubt, I have him as my final starter. Similar to you, kind of following the fan notion. the fan returns outside of that SGA pick over Curry. But Caleb, do we have more fan returns coming before the official selections are made?
I think it's the third one coming out next week. It's either that or fan voting just ends on the 20th. That's what
I do think one more comes in before the final selections are made. So we're going to keep our receipts. Me and Caleb both had 2 hot takes, so we're definitely going to see whose is true. And, we'll have a return. We'll take a victory lap if we were right. We'll definitely bow down and
take our L if we don't. Yeah.
100%. But Caleb, my man, thank you for joining me again. One final question for you. What are you most excited about this coming All-Star weekend? I know Jaime Jaquez confirmed that he's going to be, reportedly confirmed he's going to be in a dunk contest. Is that what you're most looking forward to? UCLA guy?
As much as I love my UCLA guy, very close to winning a national title. I was very disappointed 3 straight years. But, it's good to see my boy Jaime getting some run. I know he's been doing great for that Heat team. Really impressive role player for them. Fits really well with that system. It's just a fundamental guy. Cutting, getting into open space, taking open shots, and just being a really effective guy in his first year. Very polished as a 4-year starter. For me, dunk contests, I feel like we've gone as far as we can go with human anatomy and what's possible. Like, unless you're getting some guys from like Dunkademics or like Jordan Kilgannon back in the day. I feel like it's hard for NBA players to really top that. I know Mac McClung tried. He had some pretty
he
creative stuff.
injected life back into it. That was one of my favorites in recent years.
Yeah. For as exciting as that was, I got to say the main event for me, it's not the game. That's for sure. Just no defense being played. Although Steph balling in Cleveland, that was really fun in 2022. But for me, it's got to be the 3-point contest, just because that's the event where I feel you get the mix of the most role players who maybe aren't getting as much shine, but you also get the superstars who can shoot the cover off the ball, lights out from 3. Everyone kind of comes together, and in my opinion, that's the highlight of Saturday night now. So for me, it's got to be the 3-point contest, especially with some of the recent runs that we've had. What with Steph, Devin Booker, and Karl Anthony Towns is a big man winning it. Like, it's just a really fun story and really goes to show like the evolution of the league. So, yeah.
No, 100%. I think the 3-point contest is definitely slept on. I think it definitely, over recent years, it's brought out the most energy in a lot of fans and just very, very exciting to watch. And I think you're going to have, like you said, role players that don't necessarily get a lot of attention. You're probably going to have Malik Beasley, who's, even though he didn't shoot well for my Lakers last year, he's probably going to be in there just based off of how good he's shooting. You're going to have
number 1 this year for Milwaukee, baby. Number 1.
Whatever, man. He does that dance every time he hits a 3 now, but he didn't do it for us. It's all good. But I think you're going to have guys like Isaiah Joe, definitely a Desmond Bane in there for sure. So I'm excited for that. I'm pretty excited to see Hyman in that dunk contest. I'm not going to lie. I just tune into the dunk contest every year because I'm trying to get that same feeling that I got from 2016 with Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon. So
it's not the same, dude.
Never going to be the same. Definitely not, unless those 2 guys somehow, some way run it back. I know Aaron Gordon said he was going to do it if he was an All-Star, but that didn't happen. Not going to happen this year. So, but Jaime went crazy in his high school dunk contest. He got that sneaky bounce, so I'm pretty excited for that.
We'll see what happens.
That's our All-Star picks for today, ladies and gentlemen. We're definitely going to see how they come out. We're going to see how our predictions play up. Thank you guys for tuning in. Caleb, my man. I'll see you next time.
See you next time, man.